All right. So, um, okay, so I'm just typing in the name of this show.
Tim, do you just want to mute your mic just in case any background noise interrupts? Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Right. Hello, everybody. My name's Jenny Luscombe, and this is my first radio show on Holistic Radio UK. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And I'm really excited to be here, and it's lovely to be a part of a new community. And I was very drawn to holistic radio because of the name, actually, and my lovely friend Joyce, she pointed me in this direction. And I think that the idea of all things holistic is one of those things that the world hasn't quite got yet. But obviously everybody listening to this has understood how important it is to look at things holistically. You know, I was using the example before of medical science. They want to specialize, and they have a liver specialist and a bladder specialist, and those guys are missing a trick, in my opinion, because it's not always about that one thing, and we're all joined up, as lots of people know, and I know Tim knows that, who's listening with me, because he's having a few things go on with his body. So I help people with their bodies, and I help people with their emotions and with their mental body. And as a result of my journey that I've had, I found that actually it's all one thing. It's not separate at all. So we are holistic beings. The journey that I've been on has taught me that, and a lot of things kind of happened to me accidentally. So I'm a quantum healer, and I also do some other therapies called the emotion code and the body code. And my main therapy that I started out with, which changed my life utterly, is EFT tapping. And I started out on this journey because I needed to address some trauma that had come up for me. And in doing that, I was very drawn to self-help techniques. I think mainly because I didn't really want to talk to anybody about what I was going through at the time. And I kind of knew that I did need to do that. But a counsellor that I was seeing, she told me about tapping. And I thought it was a bit crazy at first that, you know, someone was telling me that I could be my own therapist. I just didn't really believe that that was possible, but I kind of dived into it and had a go. And she said, you know, Jenny, you can read books about it. You can look at free videos on YouTube. You can tap on yourself. You can surface subconscious information. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have a go at this. And within the first couple of weeks of doing that, I started to have profound shifts of consciousness. And I thought, how is this even possible? So it was miraculous, you know. And I, at the time, I was a teacher, and I thought to myself, why is this technique not taught in schools? Why is this not in hospitals? Why is this not in prisons? You know, and I didn't know at the time, I didn't know for a few years that it had actually been suppressed because it worked. But yeah, that kind of became clear to me a few years later. I realized that governments were sort of pushing CBT type approaches, which don't necessarily address the subconscious mind in the way that EFT does. And obviously the subconscious mind is the place that we need to go in order to figure things out that we're not seeing. And we're not seeing them because we suppressed a lot of aspects of ourselves, which doesn't mean that they've gone anywhere, actually. They're still present with us at all times, but it means that we've made those parts of us invisible to us, quite understandably, because we, at the time of the trauma or whatever that caused us to suppress an aspect of ourselves, We didn't know what to do, and we couldn't handle it, and nobody had taught us, so we made that invisible to us. But the thing with that is that other people can still see it, which is really interesting. I'll talk about that a bit later when I talk about parts work. So in this session today, I'm going to focus on parts work a bit later, but I'm going to give a little bit of background about me so that you guys know where I'm coming from. So kind of rewind back to the beginning of my life. I kind of felt like when I was a child, I think I was one of these people that was always awake on some level. I kind of, when I have worked with my inner child, I've sort of become aware that I felt like an adult when I was a child, and my parents seemed like they were kids. So it was quite a confusing life. My parents argued a lot. It was a Catholic upbringing. There was a lot of different kinds of abuse. Quite a few terrible things happened to me that I'm not going to go into on here because I don't really need to. And most of my life, I remember just feeling extreme anxiety, I think is probably the best way of putting it. I never felt relaxed anywhere. I didn't really know what that was about, and I didn't really question it until I was in my 30s, really. I just thought there's something fundamentally wrong with me, and I think that's what a lot of people do think. And the reason for that is, like, when we're children, we can't see our parents as wrong or bad. Because if we looked at our parents and decided there's something dysfunctional about them, they're incorrect, or they shouldn't be doing that, or they shouldn't say this, or then we would actually not, the world wouldn't make sense. So what we kind of automatically do as children, we internalize the things that happen to us. So we kind of make decisions. For example, this is where limiting beliefs come from. So when something happens to us, a parent or a teacher or somebody will disapprove of us, or something that we are, or something that we have done, then we suppress that aspect of ourselves, and we're not quite sure what that's about at the time. We make it invisible to us. But when we do that, we make it mean something about us. So we can't see our parents as the bad guy, so we make ourselves the bad guy. So we make decisions along the lines of, okay, so because this person said this or they did that to me, then this must mean that I'm not good enough, or this must mean that I'm not powerful, or, you know, we all know kind of like that we have limiting beliefs. You know, we can have limiting beliefs about ourselves, we can have limiting beliefs about other people, about things in the world. And then what happens if we don't process that emotion and we don't understand, we're not able to resolve all of that stuff that went on for us? We continue into our adult life with those frozen aspects of consciousness. So we're carrying around all of these inner children that are kind of frightened, and it's kind of like we're all split. And this is why holistic radio has the right name, because we're holistic beings, and we start whole. When we pop out of our mum, we're born into this world, we are actually the fullness and wholeness of who we are. And it would have been lovely if our parents had looked at us and kind of had the attitude, I wonder who this beautiful, unique being is. How can we help them to be themselves? How can we help them? How can we nurture their potential to be who they are in the world? Now that didn't happen for pretty much all of us. So most of us had parents who had us, they gave birth to us, and then they decided that we would be like them, or they would choose what we were going to be like. They wanted to kind of live through us. And that's what's happened to all of us. That's why we all need to do parts work and inner child work now, because we are in a situation where we need to reparent ourselves. We need to find the inner children that got frozen and stuck, And we need to, on a very basic level, the most important thing that we can all do is listen to them and try to understand them and see them and hear them and feel them and acknowledge them and get them. You know, like the majority of us often feel like we're misunderstood, like people don't understand us, they can't see into us. You know, we're all craving intimacy with other people, which is basically seeing into another person and them seeing into you. This is what we all want, but unless we integrate our inner children, we don't really have a clue who we are. So other people can't know who we are until we know ourselves. So this is what it's all about. So I was a teacher for 10 years. I also worked for NHS mental health services for 3 years. That was my first job when I was in my 20s. And I didn't fully understand the journey at the time, but like many of us on this path, I kind of look back and I see how it all fits together. And I think that the universe placed me in certain situations so that I could see what was really going on. And I've actually resigned from most of my jobs because I felt out of integrity staying after I saw a few things. And I've always been searching and looking for answers and kind of looking under the floorboards. So one of the first truth bombs that kind of went off for me in my face was in my first job, I was working alongside like many other professionals in a sort of multidisciplinary team in the NHS. And I was actually kind of like an occupational therapist. I was an employment advisor for people that had had schizophrenia and bipolar and like all sorts of severe mental health issues. And I was basically helping people to get back into work, to get back on their feet and to integrate back into the community. So I was in a team with social workers and psychiatric nurses, all sorts of different people, all doing different things. And I always used to have to go to ward rounds. So if anyone doesn't know what a ward round is, it's when the client will have a review, like however frequently that is, depending on what kind of section they're on, or you know, all of that. And the first thing that struck me when I first started to go to ward rounds was, why is the client the last person to speak? So that kind of really upset me, and I didn't really understand it. You know, this poor person there with their life falling apart and all these, you know, so-called professionals sitting around them as if they know more than this person. They all said their piece about this person, and then the person at the end would have a chance to say their thing. You know, I thought it would be more respectful for them to start and for them to talk about their experience and what they were going through. But that's not what I experienced. And I also looked around on the wards, and I was working with people in the community and people that were in hospital as well. And I found the whole system really confusing and very punitive and very military. And I didn't really understand, why are these people not cared for? And I just intuitively knew that these people needed love, and that's all there was to it, really. I thought this is actually quite simple. We just need to love them back into health. So anyway, like, I became a bit of a pain to a psychiatrist who was a colleague of mine, and I would ask him quite awkward questions. And one day I said to him, so, you know, like, I've got a background in psychology, and I'm trying to understand how you prescribe. So when you're, you know, giving people medication, you know, that's fair enough. I think medication is sometimes required. But I said to him, what I don't understand is, like, how do you know what to give them and how much to give them? And if you had a person with schizophrenia and then another one with bipolar and then someone else that was just anxious, how would you decide the difference in what you would choose, you know, the antipsychotic, anti-neurotic, antidepressant medication? And he looked at me with this expression on his face and he said, "No, Jenny," as if I got the wrong end of the stick. He said, "No, we just give them what's cheap." So this massive truth bomb went off in my head and I just couldn't unsee it and unhear that. And I lasted 3 years and then I left. And kind of, that truth bomb went off at the beginning of my NHS career. And I'm glad it did, because then I didn't stay. The next thing I did was I decided to train as a teacher. So a lot of friends of mine, they seem to be having a decent career and, they seem quite happy. And I thought, I can do that. So I did teacher training, which was the worst year of my life. And I kind of wondered when we were going to get to the part where we nurtured the children's potential, but that didn't seem to happen either. So I was kind of quite disillusioned by teaching right from teacher training. And then one of the first things that happened to me in my first year of teaching was I discovered that management teams across the board pretty much fiddled the assessment figures so that they can get the money that they want from the government. So it doesn't really matter what you as a teacher assess for the children, they just put down results that is going to get them more money anyway. So I kind of felt like my job had been made quite meaningless there. And I ended up challenging the management and, I didn't get very far. They kind of gaslit me, and anyway, they ended up giving me a cushy job where I did some extra training so that I could learn to teach dyslexic children one-to-one reading and writing. And then my journey continued. I realized, looking under the floorboards there, that the way that children are taught to read and write is actually disempowering, and that the way to learn to teach them to read and write in a functional way that would actually really help, that way wasn't actually taught to teachers at all. So I actually realized that 5-year-olds were being disempowered by being taught the wrong way. So I'd started to get very suspicious about all the things that I was seeing. And I kind of look back now and I've had lots of encounters with the systems. So I think that when I came into this life, I must have chosen to be a systems buster. But anyway, I lasted 10 years in teaching and I learned a lot, but it was became very painful for me to continue to be there. And like just things like, when the kids had got a detention or whatever, they even changed the name of detention to isolation. And I found that very difficult to cope with, because again, it was like echoing what I found on the wards in the hospital. Isolation and punishment seemed to be the order of the day. And I was like, this is absolutely insane. So when I came out of teaching, my life fell apart and I didn't really understand life and I didn't know what to do. And I thought I was going to be a freelance writer, and I did write a few articles and was quite good at that and managed to get a few things published. And I started, like, sort of triggered by a family argument. I had a situation happen to me that I still don't fully understand, but I guess it was some kind of awakening. I think it was triggered by becoming a mum, actually. So by this point, my daughter was about three or four, 2 or 3 maybe. And I found becoming a mum incredibly difficult. And I was triggered by a family argument actually with my mum. And I started to have a lot of suppressed memories come up. So I realized that I'd been in denial about a lot of things. I'd hidden so much stuff from myself that I didn't really know who I was. And I suddenly found myself in the wrong life with the wrong relationship, the wrong careers, the wrong friends around me, the wrong house, like the wrong city, like everything was wrong. And I didn't know what to do. And so it was at this point that I went and got counselling, and then I discovered EFT. So if anyone's listening to this and they want to have a go at EFT, I would recommend, like, a starting point. There's a guy on YouTube called Brad Yates, and Brad has like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos that are free. And you basically tap with him on the meridian points on your face and upper body and on the side of your hand. And he's got videos about anger, anxiety, rejection, shame, like whatever the emotion is. He's done 1 or 2 videos about those, and he's very skilled with his words. And obviously videos are scripted, and it's not aimed at a specific person. You know, if you did a session with an EFT practitioner, they could tailor make that to you, and then they could help you dig deeper into your own life and kind of the relevance of what's going on for you. But those videos were a really good starting point, and they absolutely changed my life. Absolutely. So yeah, Brad Yates on YouTube, have a look at him. And I actually met him as well. He's a lovely guy. So lots of truth bombs happened. EFT was the first therapy that I discovered. What's actually happening when you do EFT, and it stands for emotional freedom techniques. I thought sort of when I first set out, I thought that emotional freedom techniques would just deal with emotion because it's called emotional freedom techniques. But it actually deals with limiting beliefs, and it actually deals with your physical body as well. Now, I didn't know this when I set out because it isn't called physical freedom techniques, it's called emotional freedom techniques. But I was suffering from chronic pain when I was at that time of my life, and I'd had it for a few years and I didn't know what to do about it. And I'd seen a doctor, and the doctor had said, if you've got pain like this now before you're even 40, then I'm afraid it's all downhill from here. You know, people don't get better from pain like this. So that was an incredibly disempowering situation, and I didn't really know what to do about it, but I just kind of soldiered on. Like, I couldn't run for the bus, I couldn't put my own socks on. Turning over in bed would wake me up. It was a nightmare. I couldn't pick my daughter up. So anyway, I went off into this tapping world, and I started to feel so much better, and I was so happy that I'd found something that worked for me. And all I'd ever really wanted in my life was to understand myself, and I was starting to understand myself. I was starting to realize that I hadn't been feeling. I'd been blocking emotion. I started to see how important emotion was. And then I realized that my back pain had started to get better since I've been tapping. So I asked my trainer, you know, is it possible that this tapping has been helping my back pain? And she said, yes, of course, Jenny. She said, you know, all that's been happening is you've been acknowledging the negative emotion that was manifesting in your back physically, and now it doesn't need to be there. So this was all news to me. And then I realized, okay, so if me dealing with my emotion and my limiting beliefs and my thoughts and feelings that were disempowering me, if that is helping my body, then is it possible that that can help anyone's body with anything? And actually, it's true. And I'm still kind of like, I'm still staggered to this day that this isn't common knowledge, because it's been such a huge part of my life for, you know, 12 years now. And even when I talk to people, you know, just in passing conversation about it, people think I'm crazy, but it's like I had to live through that. I self-healed by accident chronic pain that my doctor told me I would have forever. So I had to live that experience in order to show other people that that was possible. Interestingly, on the same journey, over time, and I have been doing this for years, and I, you know, admittedly, I was quite obsessive as well with my healing work, because I'd found something that worked, and I had like a like a lifetime of pain and trauma and things to understand and things to process. And you know, I kept going with it, and I still tap all the time, and I use the other therapies as well. But tapping is the thing that I keep coming back to again and again, because it helps with realizing things. You have epiphanies when you tap, and you literally are uncovering the you that is underneath it all. You're taking away all the layers that are not you. So having, you know, the cumulative effect of doing this for quite a few years actually reversed my aging process, and I lost weight without even trying. And I wasn't particularly overweight, but I had, you know, a few pounds that I didn't need. And then I realized how holistic it was. You know, as soon as you start to acknowledge yourself, acknowledge the truth of all the stuff that's happened, then your body starts to rebalance. And that includes all your organs, all your glands, like your everything, your systems, your circuits, everything, all of it starts to balance. And then you just get the body that you are supposed to have. And that's kind of what I saw. But it's taken me quite a few years to kind of realize all of this. So yeah, I do sort of feel like now I have dealt with the PTSD, the complex PTSD, and obviously I still get triggers. But they're kind of quite few and far between now, not as much as I used to. I was like literally triggered every second of the day. So I feel like I've self-healed complex PTSD, which, you know, a psychiatrist would tell you isn't possible. I also definitely had an anxiety disorder. And I don't feel anxious really at all anymore. I definitely had postnatal depression. And I kind of look back and I realized that, you know, giving birth to my daughter and becoming a mum, it had to happen, and it had to wake me up actually, because I didn't want to be the mum that my mum was. And I really thank my daughter for that. Like, she's 14 now. And if it wasn't for her, I don't know what would have happened to me. I think if I had chosen not to become a parent, I don't know whether I would even be on this healing path at all. So yeah, loads has happened to me. And sort of as I've gone along, I've discovered like other healing modalities, the emotion code and the body code. And I've always been drawn to things that are all things self-healing. And EFT tapping was put out into the world for free by the innovators of that. That's Gary Craig. So you can find out, so there's so much information online about EFT. There's millions of people doing tapping videos for anyone to access. If you go on the website of EFT Universe, I think they do a free folder that you can order. I think you can probably download it, and then it shows you how to tap, how to go through that process. And I would highly recommend that. And then also Dr. Bradley Nelson, he is the innovator of the emotion code and the body code. So the body code is an extension of the emotion code. And I kind of synchronistically heard about this from listening to podcasts, and it kept popping up and it kept popping up. And I thought, right, I need to go in that direction. But the emotion code is a book that you can buy, and the body code is a book that you can buy. And I think you can get an app now for the body code. But that's been put out into the world for free as well. And it's basically, I won't go into that sort of in a lot of detail today, but in order to use the emotion code and the body code, you basically need to learn how to muscle test. Now, anyone can learn how to do that. So the reason why you would muscle test is because you can ask your body's natural intelligence yes, no questions. And then bearing in mind that your conscious mind is kind of like 5 to 10% of the capacity of your consciousness. And then the subconscious is, 90%, 95% of your consciousness capacity. If you ask your body a question, you're addressing the whole of your consciousness. So your body knows everything. Your body is an archive. You hear people talk about the Akashic records and all of that. It's your body. The subconscious mind is your body. So every football match you've been to, every face in a crowd, like you've remembered every detail. And you kind of see this when you start to do these kind of therapies, because if you have traumatic memory, it's often a memory that in your mind, it's very brightly colored. You remember the smells, the color of the tablecloth, like you remember all the details. You remember the pattern on the curtains. You remember the carpet, like you remember the expression on people's faces. You remember everything, every detail if it's a traumatic memory, because your body, your subconscious mind held on to that so that when you are ready, at a later date, you will be able to go back and process that. You'll be able to see what was going on. You'll be able to go into all the feels of that. Kind of like a veteran would have like a PTSD flashback. that is like a full body somatic experience. So if you have memories that are very brightly colored, very vivid, those are the ones that your body has saved for you to go into, you know, very lovingly at a later date. So the emotion code and the body code, if you can learn to muscle test, and there's loads of different ways of doing that. I use the sway test, which is basically you stand with your feet slightly apart, and if you say to yourself, yes, 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 or anything positive like love, 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 then your body will naturally sway forwards. So your body would always naturally move towards something that is positive. And you, if you're with a person that you feel positively towards, you're more likely to be leaning into that person, leaning forward and being close to them. If you say no, 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 and you say negative things like hate, 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 then your body will sway backwards and it will contract away from that thing. So there's finger tests, there's an arm test, there's loads of different tests that you can use, and there's even a fingertip test as well. So there's loads of different ways. Like usually people try all the forms of muscle testing, and then they find the one that's right for them, that they get like a really clear yes or a really clear no. So once you've learned to do that, you can use the emotion code chart, which is a chart of 60 emotions. So there's 2 columns and then there's 6 rows. And then in each box, there are 5 emotions. So you can say to your body, okay, so I've got this problem, you know, my wife hates me, or whatever your problem is, like, you know, I don't like public speaking, or whatever the issue is, you can say to your body, okay, so do I have trapped emotion that is causing me to have this trigger, or is causing me to have this problem with this person? And then your body will say yes, because there is always trapped emotion. It's always trapped emotion that is at the bottom of everything that is wrong in the world. And then you can kind of keep using yes, no, you know, is it in column A? Is it in an even row? And then you can identify which are the trapped emotions that are connected to this problem. And then with your intention, you can use a magnet along your meridian line. So from your forehead, so all the way down across the top of your head, down to sort of the nape of your neck. If I was doing this on another person, I would start kind of on their third eye area, like across the top of their head, down all the way down their spine. But you can do this yourself to your neck area, and then you're using magnetic energy to amplify your intention. So it sounds a bit insane to a lot of people, but sort of once you're on this path and you understand the power of intention and the power of conscious free will, you start to realize like how much this can free you in your life. So the body code is just an extension of the emotion code. So the body code is able to, like, you're able to use, there's a body code map in the body code book, and you're able to use yes, no muscle testing, which directs you through your body. So you can be directed to nutrition and lifestyle aspects, or your glands, or your organs, your circuits, your system, so your digestive system, your reproductive system, all the parts of your body, the fascia of your body. And you just keep turning to the chapters of the book that you're directed to. And it's kind of like, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like that game Guess Who, you know, like you have all the cards standing up and it's like, does he have black hair? Does he have brown eyes? And then you whittle it down and then you end up in the exact place that you need to be. Now, this is absolutely mind-blowing, and it's free. Well, I mean, after you've got the books, obviously. It's so helpful in your life. And once you've identified the emotion in your body, or the idea, allergens, which are kind of limiting beliefs, once you've identified that and you've acknowledged it, that's all that your body needed. Your body needed you to identify and hear yourself and understand yourself. And then you can kind of go deeper and you can say, okay, was this trapped in my body from this life, from my womb experience, prenatally? Was this ancestral on my dad's side, my mum's side? Was this past life? So you can really get down to the nitty gritty. You can find out so much about yourself. As soon as you start to muscle test, then if you're not already receiving intuitive information, then you will start to. Because as soon as your body realizes, okay, they're getting the messages, right? They're listening, then your intuition will crank up a notch, and then you'll start to receive information and you won't really understand where it's coming from, but it will be giving you everything that you need to know. So I'll just tell you a little story that happened when I first started to use muscle testing, because it took me actually quite a long time for me to fully trust it. Maybe even up to about 2 years of practicing, am I really doing this? Is this really the answers I'm getting from my body? Bearing in mind I had a lot of trauma that led me to not trust myself, so it might not take you guys as long. But anyway, my daughter, like, she came home from school one day, and like she never really had much trouble at school. But this particular day, like, a little boy had bullied her because she had a mole in her kind of hairline, kind of quite close to her face, quite a big mole, and it was just part of her face, and like she'd never bothered about it before, like nothing bad had happened connected to it, but some kid had like had a go at her about it and made her feel bad. So she was crying, and I thought, oh, this is an opportunity for me to have a little practice. So I tuned into her consciousness and I said, okay, so does she have trapped emotion that's caused her to attract this bully? And then I identified the emotion, and then I released it for her. And then I forgot all about it. And then 2 weeks later, she had a shower or whatever, and she was brushing her hair, and the mole had crumbled away. And I seriously hadn't expected that. And then about a week after that, she'd had a couple of moles on her back. No, sorry, not moles, warts I'm talking about, not moles. The wart on her hairline had crumbled away, and then a couple of warts that she'd had on her back, like just tiny little ones, also crumbled away. So I was like, oh my God. So I didn't expect anything physical. I was just going for the emotion, kind of similar to when I was releasing my own trauma. I didn't expect to heal myself of chronic back pain, but I thought, again, the universe is showing me that this is like affecting me on a physical level. So I started to realize, we're holding trauma. We're holding all these like difficult memories and all the pain of that. We're holding in the cells of our body. So again, that was beautiful evidence for me, like, you can trust yourself, this is working. So just have a think about your bodies and like what you're going through, and what has your doctor told you that you're going to have forever. What have you been Googling that says, okay, if you have this condition, then you can expect this in your life, or whatever. Like, I'm not saying don't listen to your doctor. I'm saying we need an integrative approach. Like, we need to not take on other people's truth as our own truth. We need to listen to our own truth and then compare notes. So yeah, EFT, the emotion code, the body code, it's all out there for free. Just no one told us. So another journey I've done, I've gone into the last couple of years, I've started to learn quantum healing, which is basically I mean, some people find it a bit of a stretch because it all seems kind of very magical and a bit esoteric and stuff. But I did quantum healing with Jerry Sargent of starmagichealing, and he's an incredible human. And his processes are absolutely mind-blowing. And he's basically received extraterrestrial light frequencies and codes, and he's taught his facilitators how to use these. It's very powerful stuff, but it's shown me that actually we don't need to be connected to extraterrestrials. We don't need to be connected to anyone or anything apart from ourselves. And we've all got an imagination, and we were probably told not to use our imagination, or we were probably told, it's just your imagination, or whatever. Our imagination is everything, which I think Einstein said. So that's something else I've been doing recently. And anyone can start to use inner child work and parts work. And there's loads and loads of info out there about all of these things. So I use both of those processes with EFT, which kind of supercharges it. The reason that EFT works is because when you're tapping on your meridian points, you reduce drastically the cortisol in your body, which is the stress hormone. And then this enables your body to communicate with you. It enables your subconscious and your conscious mind to communicate with you. And then when you're focusing on trauma and difficulty from a place of having a very relaxed body, because your cortisol is down, your body has to repattern. So when you're observing, witnessing your inner child's emotion, your own emotion, your limiting beliefs from a place of relaxation, it's impossible for you to be in survival mode and a healing state at the same time. So your body literally repatterns itself. And this enables you to move the energy, move the emotion, so that you are just left with the organic you, the version of you that you should have been all along. So I've actually posted on my channel a video where I'm teaching parts work. And I think this is one of the most important processes on the planet for humanity right now, because it helps people to shift really difficult things like self-sabotage, which most people find a very resistant problem, because it's basically stepping into your own power, isn't it? When you want to go in the direction of yourself and then you feel held back by other parts of you. So I'm not going to go into it in massive detail because I've put that video on my channel for everyone to have a look at. But the reason why parts work works is because we all have suppressed aspects of consciousness. And it's a bit like, you know, it in some ways kind of like everyone kind of has heard of multiple personality disorder, and that's a very severe condition, but like we all have that in some way, like we're all on the scale somewhere. So you know, we know that we've got this if we find ourselves behaving differently in one scenario than we do in another, or maybe with this person we can be ourselves, but with this person we have to pretend something, or you know, we've all got multiple sides, and many of us, we can't make a decision. It's like, why can't I make a decision? Or why do I feel torn? You know, all of this stuff causes immense suffering. And we're kind of on a pendulum swing with a lot of this kind of stuff. It's kind of like, you know, but this part of me wants to smoke, this part of me doesn't want to smoke, or this part of me wants to step into my power and do this project, and this other part of me doesn't, you know. And then you just swing from one side to the other, to the other, to the other. Now, the reason that that's happening is because both parts are valid. Both parts are valid. So if we hear both sides of that fully in its entirety, so if we take on one part as if it's the totality of us and let that express itself, and then take on the other part as if that's the totality of us and then let that express itself, we no longer have to swing from one to the other, because in the recognition and the hearing of it and the seeing of it, those parts which seem to be opposing start to actually align with each other. And then as soon as they start to align with each other, the natural kind of healing ability of your body and your consciousness kicks in, and then it kind of unwinds itself of its own accord, really. And it's actually a very, very simple process to use. And most people don't know it exists. And actually what I found is that even the majority of therapists actually don't use this. And I don't really understand why that is. You know, maybe parts work has been hidden from us like a lot of other things that are very useful, but it comes from a therapy called internal family systems, which I'm not trained in, but I've heard is quite an amazing therapy. And this is just one aspect of what they do in that therapy. So I would say learn how to do parts work. It's really easy. You can express those parts of your consciousness just by writing or filming yourself, singing, dancing, crying, like whatever is your thing, whatever helps you get into that vibe. And then you will know, the more you do it, you have to keep going back to parts work. It's not like a one-time only thing. Keep going back. And each time you go back and you work with those aspects of you, so the part of me that wants to be powerful, the part of me that wants to hide under the duvet or whatever, like each time you go back, those parts will feel different, because each time you do it, you will have a shift. And that shift is occurring simply by you going there. So we have to go there. So, you know, the majority of us were taught not to go to our emotion. We were taught not to do that. You know, we were taught that emotion is wrong, or, you know, it's socially unacceptable to be angry, or, you know, boys don't cry. You know, there's millions of different reasons why we were taught to not go in the direction of our emotions. You know, many of us were punished for being emotional, which is a terrible thing to happen, because our emotions are the answer. And we need to love ourselves enough to sit with those emotions and to allow ourselves to be emotional, because after what we've all been through, we should be. So the secret to life, I think, is you know, if we expose our emotions to the light, they have to change. So this is the observer effect. If we don't go to our emotions, if we ignore them or keep them suppressed or reject them, then we're going to be keeping them there. We make all of our symptoms permanent in our body, because they are all basically emotion that we've been trying not to feel. And that's why things get bigger and bigger and symptoms get worse and worse, because we don't look and we avoid it, and we take the pharmaceuticals or we take the painkillers. That's taking us away from ourselves, which is kind of what the Matrix wants. It wants us to be separated from ourselves. So all of these processes that I teach that you can learn yourself, they're helping you move back towards yourself, because as soon as you do that, that's when you are going to get well, and you will start to have spontaneous healings. And even sometimes the things that you're not focusing on will get better, just like it happened for me. And this is all just physics. It's just engaging with emotion, is engaging with physics. So what I think, and what many people think, is that all suffering, all human suffering, is not caused by negative emotion. It's caused by resistance to negative emotion. If you don't engage with it, it can't move. It's stuck. It's like static electricity in your body. If you do engage with it, it has to move. And sometimes you have to engage with it for a long time. And sometimes it feels hard to do that. But what is harder than engaging with your emotion is what happens to you if you don't do that. Because if you don't do that, you will just keep collecting physical conditions, because physical conditions are just repeating thought patterns, being stuck on a loop. And I would recommend listening to Dr. Bruce Lipton, because he's like an amazing guy who he talks very eloquently about the subconscious mind, and what it's basically just a tape player. And your symptoms are your body shouting at you and waving a flag at you until you listen. And if you don't listen to that symptom, you'll get another one. And if you don't listen to that symptom, you'll get another one. So as soon as you start to listen to your symptoms and you learn to tune into them, that's when they have to move. And it doesn't all happen at once. It kind of involves commitment to yourself. But obviously, you know, I'm going to be talking about that in a lot more detail in each of my shows. So I've kind of been a bit kind of general today, and a bit of background about me and stuff. But yeah, I would recommend moving towards yourself.
Sure.
Yeah. Hello.
Can I just jump in? First
Sure.
of all, let me thank you for an absolutely awesome show.
Thank you.
I've been posting up different things that you've been mentioning about different books and that from
Thanks, Andy.
to the channel.
Yeah.
But I think Bob wants to come on
Okay.
and say something, and he's been unmuted and muted himself, but he's back.
Sorry, Bob. Hi, Bob. Right, Bob. I haven't got the right contact lenses in, so I can't see my phone. Sorry. How are you?
Oh, that's good. Well, good morning, everybody. It's now 10 to 4 in the morning. I've been a week Sunday Island. So
yeah, I know. Thank you.
Cup of coffee. Let me know.
Thank you for being up in the middle of the night. That's hilarious. Well done.
I just wanted to say, Jenny, congratulations on this new venture.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, getting the message out there is so important, and it's finding the tribe.
It really is.
You know, I think both are, I would say, client based, but people that can benefit. People that are doing that, like yourself, thousands and thousands of us. You know, we're just connected with more people.
Yeah.
It's funny. Recently, you know, spells. You know, my words are my spells, so I do cast them wisely.
Yeah.
You know, but the universe is always listening. And it takes everything I say literally.
Yeah.
But I just like to have join you in your attack on the Western model.
Yeah, go for it, Bob.
Yeah, well, recently I've been diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer. You know, and I'm sitting there looking at all the procedures I've been through since like last July, August, like X-rays and CT scans and MRIs and biopsies and colonoscopies and you know, I thought, what's happened to the doctor's Hippocratic oath? You know, the basic bottom line is do no harm. Now, every one of those procedures.
Yeah.
And is 200 times more harmful as an X-ray, and also figures said that one CT scan will chance of cancer by 35%. And then the biopsy I had in my prostate, you know, I was missing blood for a week.
Yeah.
Then, you know, stabbing my prostate times.
Yeah.
And the other thing I realised about that process was, up until I had a scan that said, okay, were confined within the prostate, which was enlarged, you know, and that was it. That was all dooby-dooby-doo, and they could deal with that, you know.
Yeah.
If I'd met them. But after I had the biopsy, I went for another scan, and again, you know, they're injecting radioactive iodine into my body. I thought, this can't be doing any good. But the point is, after the biopsy, this new scan actually showed that the tumours had burst out the prostate and got into some lymph nodes, but nowhere else. And and me being a simple sort of engineering approach, that's why they call me the spiritual mechanic. I'm just picturing my prostate there that's really pissed off because it's got all this crap going on inside. And then some bastard comes in and breaks the prison walls and releases these tumours out into the rest of my body. For me, that may sound crazy, but for me, it's a simple solution.
Yeah.
You know, so they've done me harm again, which is why I'm fervent on my natural healing process with carbon dioxide and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Keep going, Bob.
Yeah. The other thing I'd like to validate and support you in is the belief that, my body is so much smarter than me. It always knows what it needs. It's always sending me messages. All I got to do is sit quietly and listen.
Yeah.
And obey. It's so true.
It's quite literal.
For me. But feeling this healing just came from when I was doing that inner child work with John Bradshaw in the early 90s. It was basically a process of going back and sitting in that feeling, and then the feeling that you weren't allowed to release at that time, because children should be seen and not heard, and you know, all these taboos. But to go back to every moment and just feel those feelings and let the body release them. You know, that was part of my process of been in the wounds of my childhood. But
yeah.
yeah.
It's amazing what you're doing.
Time.
Yeah, and thank you for the title of my show, Bob, which I stole from Bob. But it just, like, you know, I like your words, and you know, it makes sense that I called the show Feeling as Healing, because it is, and it's what people don't do, and it's what the pharmaceutical industry is trying to stop people doing, you know. But it's funny that you've said that, because I think it was yesterday, saw something on one of my Telegram channels, that people that I follow, something about mammograms are apparently doing terrible damage to women, and there's so much, they're making so much money, and now they're calling upon women to go twice a year and stuff like that at certain ages, and you know, I can't remember the details of it, but I thought, thank God that I'm not going in that direction, you know. I mean, I've not had anything to do with doctors for like over 10 years now. I haven't needed to, luckily, you know, for me. But
it's easy to understand, Jenny, when you consider that the Rockefellers have been managing, directing the Western medical model since the 1920s.
Yeah,
You know, the simple truth for me with the Western medical model is that curing people is bad for business. Yeah,
totally. Customers, not cures.
The procedures that I just had was very, very expensive. So they're trading on my sickness by giving me procedures that actually make me less well.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. How are they perceiving you, Bob? Like, with all your different potions and things that you're using, and like your, you know, determination to do it naturally. Are they trying to get you back in the fold?
I spoke to the radiology oncologist, this doctor, blah blah blah, who lives up in Townsville or somewhere, and he said, "Yeah, we've done the results, and you've got very, very aggressive." Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks, I already knew that, but I also knew what the Western medical system was going to suggest as solutions, and they all involved invasion into my body and burning bits and stuff, you know, cutting bits out. And I'm just thinking, oh, God's up there, you know, in the clouds, looking down at this creation, thinking, they're mad. They're mad. They believe by cutting pieces out of the beautiful creation that I made, they can heal themselves. They've already got what they need to heal on the planet.
Every
mineral, every herb.
It's so it's terrifying. It really is, and it's so difficult as well, because, you know, I'm surrounded by people that are sick, and I've been banging on for years and telling people they can heal themselves, but people around me are going for surgeries. They're waiting for surgeries. They're on waiting lists that they're never going to get to the front of, and it's an incredibly weird time, isn't it, to have information like this that no one wants to hear, you know.
When I told him what I was using, I could hear the click, see the keyboards clicking if we had a video chat.
Yeah.
I said, I'm using CDS, chlorine dioxide solution. And he comes back, but you're drinking bleach.
Oh, God,
God,
yeah.
You know, chlorine dioxide is
Are you still there, Bob? Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry, you disappeared for me then, but I heard most of what you said. But yeah, drinking bleach. Stop drinking bleach, Bob.
No, but you know, I first came across it in the early 2000s when it was just known as MMS, the Magical Mineral Supplement. You know, and it was brought to global awareness by Jim Humble, who's been persecuted ever since. But Andreas Kalka sort of took over his process and refined it. And, you know, my Bible is Andreas' book, Forbidden Health, you know. And currently I'm taking baking soda and maple syrup and some borax in my coffee in the morning. So
yeah,
getting pretty full on.
yeah. Well done.
Can we talk about, I don't know how long you got, can we talk about, well, for me, on my journey of healing, I've come to the conclusion that all the damage is done in the first 7 years, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, jump in, Bob. It's 7 o'clock now. Ordinarily, if Dolly wasn't on holiday, Dolly would be starting her show right then. But I just wanted to say to Jenny,
yeah,
you can, if you want to, you can stop the recording and then just continue the conversation and have an after-show chat then, and it can go on whilst Dolly's on holiday. There's nothing to stop you from doing that if you want to show to an end. Okay,
yeah, let's do that. Okay, because I think Tim wanted to talk as well. So yeah, thank you everybody for being here. Is that you, Joyce?
Yeah, can I just quickly jump in? I've got to go because I've got a meeting.
Okay.
That I'm already late for, but great show. Really identified with pretty much everything that everybody said up to now, and I'm wondering if Bob, would you mind if we connected? Because I'm interested in using CDS. I have used it on a pet, but I need to use it on myself. But I would feel more confident, I think, to connect with someone who's already using it.
Yeah, certainly.
Would you mind if I private message you later this evening?
Yeah, but don't tell anybody about it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks, Joyce. Thanks for coming. And thank you everybody else for coming. And I can see Louise as well. Hello. And Tim, do you want to come on and talk? I think I'm just I'll finish the show and then we'll carry on chatting afterwards. Because otherwise I don't want it to be too long. And then also I need to get used to being on time. Timekeeping isn't my speciality. So thank you so much everybody for being here. Absolutely brilliant. So if anybody wants to message me and ask you know, put in requests about what they want me to talk about and stuff, I mean, I have got loads to talk about, but I would much rather be talking about things that people want to hear. So if anybody wants to request any information or they want help with something or help understanding something, then I'm open to that, and I'd like to incorporate that into my shows as well. So brilliant. Thank you so much everybody. I'm just going to stop the recording now if I can figure out how to do that, which I think I can. I don't want to end the video chat, do I, Andy? Yeah, yeah.
Back to that.
Yeah.
Go back.
Stop recording. Okay, I've pressed stop recording, but now it says, do you want to stop recording this video chat? Which I don't, do I? I do. Okay. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. Okay, and then we can still chat. Right, I've got it. Got it. Okay. In my saved messages. Yeah, perfect. Okay, and then I'll send that to you.
Station group.
Okay.
And then I'll attach it to the flyer and everything.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thanks, Andy.
Hi to Bob. Hey, we're clear. Everybody else that stuck around, yeah, we've still got quite a few on there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Yeah, Tim, do you want to have a word first, and then can you? Yeah, you don't have to, but if you want to, because like Tim's a good friend of mine, and he's having a similar journey to Bob actually, and I'm finding that like so many people have been let down by the NHS or whatever the health services. And people are having to become experts in their condition to basically survive. And there's so many people doing that. And, you know, I think we're all on the right path doing that. Anyway, I'll shut up, Tim, and let you speak.
Yeah, okay, so thanks. I guess I'll just briefly summarise. Kind of similar to you, Bob. I, for like 13 years now, have had an issue which normally is associated with women, where I get repeated urinary tract infections. And this, it hasn't happened every year, but probably every other year over that time period. And when I get them, it's chronic, so it doesn't resolve within you know, a few weeks or what would normally be the case. And I try conventional treatments and antibiotics, and then, you know, different supplements and therapies. I've obviously tried tapping quite a bit over that time as well, but it is extremely persistent, and when it happens, it's really debilitating. And there's usually, in fact, there is always some kind of stress event which happens, and it's to do with sexuality. And that stress event will then cause basically this chain reaction in my body. And so, you know, on a 3D level, I'm like, well, this is a biological problem. You know, I've caught something. You know, I've got a serious illness. You know, I go through this every time. Of like, well, what's the worst that could possibly happen? Well, I've got a serious disease and I'm going to die. You know, and there's nothing I can do. Right? So I go through that whole process every time. But you know, as time goes on, you know, the increasing number of times this happens, and I look at the sequence of events, more and more is making sense to me. And always, every time this has happened, when I meet someone new in my life and there's like the opposite of stress in that department, so there's a real sense of love, normally after a few weeks of being in that with them, my symptoms go completely. So I've already discussed this with Jen, and, you know, it seems fairly conclusive that it is, you know, an emotional thing, a stressor event, and then the antidote to that. But I, even now, after all these years, still really, really struggle to accept that fully. And still, I'm looking for more and more, you know, in-depth, intricate ways of logically analysing and getting answers through, you know, some quite pioneering medical stuff to do with specialist labs and all of that, because there's a part of me that refuses to accept that this is purely an emotional thing or a past life thing or something like that. So, you know, I'm in it once again right now, and I'm trying to work on numerous levels to resolve this in ways that I haven't managed to before. I'm kind of taking it to new degrees. But yeah, Jen, we talked about this, haven't we? And I still haven't got the answer fully. And I think the thing that gets me the most is, I know what you're going to say, you know, and you said this earlier, sometimes when it's something that's really deep, it might take, like you said with your back, it might take many, many months or longer or a year of you consistently putting the effort in with a particular therapy like EFT before you get a result. And I'm just such a fucking impatient person. I want to see quick results. And I think that's blocked me from that route more than anything.
Well, this is like, your situation is so interesting to me, and I've been watching you with interest, and like, it's definitely with you like a case of I'm searching outside of myself for answers. Like, you've seen all the specialists, you've done all the Googling, you're looking at this person, that person, this expert, you know, and all of these people, definitely listen to them, but they're not you. and I keep saying to you, you need to come back to yourself, you know, and you do need to listen to the experts and all of that. I'm not saying don't do that, but like the emotional side of it, and like this makes sense to me in terms of Bob's issue as well, because you both have an issue with your reproductive systems, and you both have very similar trauma. So you both had very disempowering mums. And like I get loads of like, because I had a very disempowering mum as well. So the law of attraction brings me people who have very similar trauma to me. And in men do, if they had that kind of trauma, they very often have prostate issues or some sort of reproductive system issue or sexuality issue, whatever. It's so interesting. And like maybe in kind of future shows, I'll kind of go a bit more into the whole literal way that the body is talking to us. You know, the Louise Hay kind of way, you know, if you've got a problem with your legs, then it means you've got difficulty moving forward, or, you know, all of that. If you have joint problems, you know, it's connected with connection, quite literally. The body is so literal, and if people saw it in the simple way that it is actually talking to you, people would make like massive progress. But what you're saying, Tim, it's like we have to love ourselves enough to go there, sometimes for a long time, and to sit through layers and layers of stuff that our inner children went through. You know, some people do have one-hit wonder sessions, and sometimes you do have a massive breakthrough and you think, wow, I've done it. But like we all know that healing is hard, and like, you know, it's a spiral, isn't it? Like we think we've sorted something and then it comes back round again, and it's like, really I'm like doing this again. And it's really hard work. But yeah, you know, keep going, and you're doing an amazing job because your symptoms are moving, you know.
Yeah, I'd like to respond.
Go for it, Bob.
One liner from one of my books, actually. Came to me. The mind is all blew me away. You know, it was all lies. It was all lies. But my mind kept on trying to find solutions from my depression. Whilst I've been taking antidepressants for 20 years, and every time it would come back with a more complicated answer, which just begat more questions. And it wasn't until I learned how to silence my mind using creative visualization and realizing that my mind is just a tool that I use when I choose, for I'm so much more than my mind. Once I was able to silence my mind, I could clearly hear my heart. And that's where, you know, within the silence of my heart, I found this place I call my knowing. And my knowing has no words, but it's a feeling. And that French guy, Descartes, or what a bloody idiot, I think, therefore I am. Now, I don't know about you, but me, I experience this life through my feelings. I feel the warmth of the sun on my skin. I smell the sweet tang of the rotting mangoes. I hear the raucous laughter of the kookaburras in the morning. So I'm actually experiencing this life through my feelings. My feelings are emotions, emotion, energy in motion. So for me, it's I feel, therefore I am, not I think, therefore I am.
Yeah, totally, wow. Totally. Yeah, it's quite misleading, isn't it? I think, therefore I am, because for a lot of us, thinking is like the worst thing that we can do. For me, like my thinking has been a terrible problem for me, like in my life. But I remember
thinking is another one. Thinking is the weapon of mass distraction. People are busy thinking, they're not feeling and healing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Thanks, Bob, for saying that. And you know, as I go along on my journey, it's something I'm happy to, you know, bring my attention towards more and more, because it's like you try everything else, but then you keep coming back to that, you know, that knowing in your heart. And when you can actually, I mean, when I can, I'm still learning this, but when I can actually get in there and be still, like, there's plenty that I do know. It just seems so obvious, but yeah, thank you for saying that, because my mind does like to run, you know, in 10 different directions at once. Still,
Well, Tim, what I would like to say is the universe has a wicked sense of humour, and so here I am with this aggressive prostate cancer. So, being creator and master and commander of my life, I asked myself this question: okay, Bob, you've created this event in your life. What's the lesson you need to learn from it? And almost immediately, I got feedback from the universe saying, Bob, it's time for you to put up or shut up, blow the fold back into your old programming and go under the Western medical knife or blowtorch or radiation or whatever it is. Yeah. So it's put up or shut up. You either roll back into your old programming or you walk your talk. You're always saying that nature is nurture, you know. And so from that moment on, I took control of my treatment. And I got borax, baking soda, hydrogen peroxide. There's so many natural cures out there. And so scientist yourself, I wanted to know what my body was like right now as I start my own natural treatment therapy, and how I can use my GP or doctor to set a baseline and then do a 3-monthly monitoring check. And this is synchronistic. A new medical centre opened up here called Barefoot Medicine, and I thought, well, I don't own a pair of shoes. This is for me. So so I went on down and got introduced to this lovely doctor, mentioning no names. I don't like doctor, you know, Dr. DR, that just stands for drug retailer. But the person I found is probably about 55, male, white, Australian. Is going to be around for a while, which is a blessing, because we get doctors here, you know, that are here for 6 months and gone. They just, yeah, anyway. So I said, look, I've been told I got aggressive prostate cancer. Right, I'm the project manager for this episode, and I would like to employ your services on monitoring the efficacy of my treatment protocol as we move forward. Would you be up for that? And he said, yeah, great. And I thought, hallelujah. Hallelujah. So we took a load of bloods and an ultrasound as a baseline, and I'm trying to stick to my CDS protocols, but also there's an inner knowing that's like, don't be too virtuous. You know, it's okay to skip a day. I've watched all the videos, and you know, I know how to use it. I've got the book, and you know, but there's an inner knowing that says, okay, Bob, you've done enough. Take a break. You know. So it's all about trusting that inner belief. I lost my belief in me when I was about 4.5 years old.
Mm.
And that's the power of doing that inner child work. And John Bradshaw's stuff is all for free on YouTube. I really recommend it. But yeah, but going back to my childhood, it's you know, it's frequent. I get frequent flyers now. But I was about 48.5 years old, and it was a Sunday morning, and I woke up, bounced out of bed, brushed my hair and combed my teeth, and went down to breakfast, and Mum said, "Boy, go back upstairs and put your blue T-shirt on." I thought, no, I love my red T-shirt. That's why I put it on. She said, "Go on." go up and put your blue t-shirt on. You know you love your blue t-shirt. So I stood up confused and thinking, oh, Mum must be right, because she's very violent, very angry, and she's about 80 foot tall. So I went upstairs and took off my red t-shirt and put on my blue t-shirt, and that's my earliest recollection of cutting off from my inner knowing, cutting off from my belief in me, and getting my reality from sources outside of me. And that trend just extrapolated through my adult life until I woke up and said, no, bollocks to this.
That might have been kind of like a core memory. That's this kind of memory that comes up in EFT sessions where people's patterns first start. So that was the beginning of you suppressing yourself and deciding to become what your mum wanted instead of like who you were. Do you know what I mean? Which most of us don't have a choice, you know.
Yeah, the other pattern was established during my childhood, which manifested in adulthood, was anxiety. And they were laid in during the first 7 years, because when I was at home and at school, when I was at home, I was totally living in fight or flight, because I never knew when I was going to get beaten again. And the same thing for me at school in England. When I went to school, Eastfields, I was 5 years old, and Mum sent me to school in lederhosen, you know, the German leather pants and stuff. I got the shit kicked out of me at school as well. Wow. I said, Mum, all I want is a school uniform. She said, no, you're a fine young German boy. He said, no, you know, they don't listen, do they? But so by going back and realising and healing the wounds of my childhood through sharing my story with my mum, all my anxiety in my adult life disappeared. Up until then, you know, I could be walking down the beach at sunset with a dog and everything's ooby-dooby-doo, and then all of a sudden feel like there's somebody behind me with a knife. You know, but all that shit is gone.
That's powerful what you did, Bob. And I mean that's what I've not managed to do with my mum, because I tried to talk to my mum about all this stuff, and because she couldn't handle it, so I've had to do this journey on my own. But you can still, like, you know, you don't have to talk things through with family, but it does definitely help, like, massively to do that. And I think that's why my journey's been particularly hard, because I had family that wouldn't engage with me on it because they weren't ready, you know, they couldn't, which is fair enough.
But it was a realization that we're all victims of victims, and if you don't hand it back, you pass it on. Mum, or whoever the abuser is, hurt people. Mum was doing her very, very best, but all she could do was dump on me what got dumped on her. So by sharing our stories, we broke the multi-generational cycle of abuse. And knowing that when Mum had a violent childhood, I could move from hate through understanding back to love. And so that was an important step to get to. To forgive my abusers.
It's beautiful. It's lovely that you've managed to do that. I mean, this is making me think of, you know, when me and Tim have talked about our mums, like Tim's mum said something along the lines of, we just don't go there. Is that how she puts it, Tim? I will not bare my soul to my child. It's so difficult when
I will not reveal myself to you. You know, I will always hold myself apart from you.
She believes really strongly in separation, and it's kind of like, what do you do with that, you know, when you're interested in unity? And that's very similar to my mum, you know, although my mum didn't have words that went with it, she just had a wall of silence, you know. But I'm just wondering, does anyone else on here want to say anything? And obviously you don't have to.
I was just thinking, Jenny, you know, because I love chatting with you. It's just bounce, you know. I love winging it. But from the work I've done and the research I've done, and my lived life experience, I've come to the conclusion that we currently live in a society that is set up to produce wounded children, and I base that on a very, very simple sort of analogy that tribal people, even in our feudal times, child was born, mum and dad, as a little baby, and they got to go out to work, so they take the baby with them. So there's this physical and emotional and spiritual connection that's held